Hello everybody. Things are looking a bit different around here. Wouldn't you say? Welcome to the updated version of the stream and the Lunar Archive. We're gonna have a full introduction here in a little bit, but for right now, let me give you a little look around the place. There's a few noticeable differences besides my schwanky desk. You see this glorious backdrop. You see, of course, my lovely mic. Oh, and I'm looking a little bit different too. I think I look pretty good, honestly. And then, of course, there is our little buddy here, Mog. Mog is a Moogle. I found him after we finished the last game. He just kind of stuck around here in the archive. I don't know why, but he seems to be pretty handy. He helps keep things kind of organized a little bit. So when you know, follow the stream, raid the stream, subscribe, anything like that, Mog's going to be the one that's going to call it out from now on. Give Eve a little bit of a break. Luckily, Mog doesn't talk. Mog just announces. Well, I mean, he sort of talks. He's got this little text box that shows up around him. I guess this is because he comes from Final Fantasy IX and they didn't have voice acting yet. So all he could do is text boxes. They're cute, though. Actually, you guys can actually contribute in the chat and control Mog, too. There's a couple different commands. And I'll go get into those here in a minute when we start the actual proper debut, re-debut. 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 Yeah, I think that's right amount of re's right there. So, and then after we go through all of that, have kind of fun with kind of joking around and checking things out and showing off some stuff, we're going to have a race tonight. It's going to be exciting. We're actually racing against Lunar Projections, our usual hanging out in the chat Lunar, who I met up with, and we decided to race each other through Final Fantasy X. They wanted to play through Final Fantasy X. We were just getting through Final Fantasy X. So we said, hey, why don't we do it as a race? And the goal is to see who basically could beat it faster. I think Lunar's actually on right now, going through it. I have no doubt that they'll be here after they finish up their stream. But we'll go over the rules and everything of the race when we get to it, because there are rules for a race this big, because it's more of a marathon kind of situation, where instead of having to deal with, trying to beat the whole game in one sitting, which would be insane. Not that I wouldn't, but that would be insane. And from there, we have we're going to break it up and everything like that. So we have rules for how much we can play per week and everything like that. And exactly how much progress we make is entirely skill-based then. We have a locked amount of time, but how quickly we progress through that time will be entirely dependent on how good we are at the game. Do we need to grind more? How good are we at killing bosses? How many times do we die to those bosses? That's going to be all based off of our skill and everything and our time limit. And this is going to be a bit of an interesting one, because I remember the story of 10 very well. The fights, I remember them being very technical, but I don't remember how to do them necessarily. like all the little tricks and everything. So it's going to be kind of a crazy thing right there. I have no idea. 10 was not exactly the type of game I didn't end up playing it until, wow. I think after the HD remakes came out originally. I think that was the first time I actually played 10. So it was not one of those things I grew up with a lot. Instead, I ended up playing through... I honestly, I didn't get back into the Final Fantasy series until, I think, 13. Like, I didn't play 10, I didn't play 11. Well, I didn't really have a way to play 11 at the time. And I didn't play 12. I skipped over 12. I heard good things, but it was one of those things where I was in college and I was already playing WoW a lot, and I just did not have the time for Final Fantasy 12. So 13 was the first time, like, I was just done with college, and I tried out 13. And I think that was the time I got back into the Final Fantasy series. Which was good. I had a good time with it. We'll get to it eventually, but you'll be surprised that I am a staunch defender of 13. I know it's not a particularly popular title, but that's okay. But I like it. But that's not what we're going to do. Today we're doing 10. Back at 10. And of course we have our Renegade Hydrate for the night, which is a Dr. Pepper Blackberry. I had no idea this existed. I'll be honest. It showed up. Apparently, my wife found it courtesy of Lunar's recommendation. So that's why we're drinking it tonight. Is Lunar apparently suggested this one. I had no idea it even existed. I haven't even found it at a store. I have no idea where they got this, because I haven't seen it at the stores. I haven't seen it on the shelves anywhere. So it'll be curious, because I don't much care for blackberries. Raspberries I'm okay with, but blackberries not been particularly fond of. Like them better than blueberries. I have some blackberry related stories I can tell when we get around to drinking it. It's weird. But yeah, so this is the new set. This is the new Lunar Archive. Brought to you by I guess Etsy? Would be the best way to put it, but I like how it turned out. I like how it looks. Well, with all that being said, shall we get into the actual presentation part of the re-debut? Because, yes, if I was going to do a re-debut, I was going to go balls to the wall and do a whole slideshow presentation thing. Do it right this time, because when I first did my debut for, outside of the Loperate model, I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never seen a debut at that point before, and I just kind of like, yep, this is me, we're gonna do funny, wacky stuff. But now I've seen a few people do their debuts, and I've got a little bit better idea of what I was supposed to be telling you guys. A little bit more of an introduction to moi. So with that said, let's chat, shall we? How's this? That work better? I think so. Welcome to the presentation. Brought to you by and BB. A full introduction to the Lunar Archive for you guys. And a little bit of an introduction to me. Here at the Lunar Archive, we are a multiversal historicity monitoring station. What does that mean? That means that we observe the events and timelines of different universes from a neutral location. We look into those different places beyond our own and find interesting stories to share with you. That's right. We are in the interdimensional rift. When I say we're on the moon, not that one, that's what I mean. We're not on a moon that anyone's ever heard of because we are in a moon in a place that doesn't actually exist. Sort of. It's complicated. I am the Lunar Lore Keeper. That means I'm in charge of keeping track of all of those stories. My name is Vrykerion. 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 Like Fry, Perion. Or Hyperion. Technically the name comes from Hyperion, which I always thought was a cool name, and Vrykul, a race of giants from the Wrath of the Lich King expansion in World of Warcraft, which I also thought had a really cool name. So what did I do with two cool names? I smooshed them together. Originally, it was a name for a Blood Elf Death Knight, but it sort of became my entire persona after a while. And that's me now. My age is I am an old ass man at the age of over 40. Yes, this voice, this face, everything like that, I am old enough that the original Nintendo did not exist when I was born. How's that for old? I was there to witness the dawn of the NES. And I was told I could not have one. Because my mother insisted that no video games would be allowed in her house. I now own about 15, 16 game systems. Joke's on her. My height is 5'8", 6'2" with my ears. Those ears up there. So if you ever want to doodle me or anything like that to give my rough height, that's basic measurements there for you. My birthday is November 30th. I like to tell people that my birthday is at the end of November. Because it is. Literally. Languages I speak are, of course, English, as I am speaking right now in English. I also speak C#, JavaScript, and to annoy any other programmers out there watching, HTML. Finally, my Oshi mark, if you ever choose to use one. I think everyone has one of these, and I've never actually seen anyone use someone else's. Like, everyone I've seen floating around online just has their own Oshi marks in their bio or on their username, and no one has anyone else. Not really, but you know, it's tradition. So here we are. Oshi mark is a top hat and some books. Books because I'm the Lunar Lore Keeper. I tell stories. I am a lore keeper. The top hat, well, that's because, as you can see below the Oshi mark there, that is the hat. The hat was the original mascot for this whole thing. The hat is a hat I actually own. It has goggles on it. It was a hat I purchased at a Cirque du Soleil show. It is floppy. It does not hold its form at all. But it's comfy and fun and kind of cool looking, so I've used it for ages. Those who had ever seen my live action videos way back in the day when I made an attempt at live action content and was told I was cringe. I was. That's fair. I embrace that title. Would see me wearing the hat. I think we watched it last year for the 15th anniversary of me being online content creator. So yeah, the hat has been here all along, and for some reason it still sticks around, despite the fact that I don't wear it anymore. But as we used to say, the hat controls me. Speaking of the hat, you can see there on Vry, my first VTuber incarnation, I was wearing a version of the hat with googly eyes on it. In this picture, I also have a mustache. I'm not sure why. There is also, as another variant of me that you might see running around, Vry. Vry is apparently an evil version of me from another universe. I don't know. He showed up and took over during last Halloween. That's all we really know. BB finally tracked him down and kicked him off. And then, of course, above Vry there, you have the also elusive Flesh Fry. That's right, I exist somewhere out there in meat space. I have the goos and the stickies and the grossness. Don't worry, you probably won't run into me. And if you do, you won't know it's me. Unless you see me wearing that weird Moogle hat. That's usually a pretty good way of seeing me. I wore that when I was at Games Done Quick. If you look really hard in some of the old VODs for last summer Games Done Quick, you could see me bouncing around in the background, waving my Moogle pom-pom. And finally, we have current me. Well, I just realized I've accidentally lost my headphones. I'll have to get those put back on here in a bit. We had some technical problems with my model earlier this evening. A lot of the toggles I had set up were all missing, and all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. But we'll get it all sorted out. Either way, that is the current me. We also have a few new redeems for channel points that include turning me into Dark Vry, which is my devilish counterpart. Moving on. My hobbies are collecting things. I collect all sorts of things. I have pins. I have plushies. I have plushies that have wrestling matches with each other. And I have game memorabilia. But that's not all. Because I collect things. A lot of things. Now, that could be anything from I have sodas, plushies, trading cards, video game memorabilia, replica lightsabers, cups from movies and or theme park attractions, sodas, I think I already said that. I have so much stuff. Books. I have a crazy amount of stuff sitting on my shelves and in my collection. And some of it is really cool, and some of it's really rare, and some of it's just stupid stuff that I have. In fact, the soda collection is actually how we got started with the whole Renegade Hydrate thing. It's because I have so many tendencies to grab and collect weird, random sodas that people started asking me what they tasted like. So I decided, hey, we'll start doing that on stream. You know, redeem your channel points. I'll do some crazy hydrate stuff where I hydrate with messed up stuff and weird sodas that I find. But yeah, this is I collect a crazy amount of stuff. I like to say that I have a collection of collections. Because there's no narrowing this stuff down. You can barely see it, but right next to me there's a cup of noodles with lightning from Final Fantasy 13 on it. That's how random some of this stuff gets. So, next is, let's talk about some of my favorite things. These aren't just things I collect, but things that I really, really enjoy. My all-time faves, really, because there's a lot of things I enjoy. There's a lot. But I wanted to pick out some that were like my all-time favorites here. One, anime. What are some of the anime I go to time and time again and just pick and watch, either out of comfort, out of joy, or out of just pure love of the quality and craft? Well, of course, there's Overlord there, which is when I go to comfort things. Yes, the one about the skeleton man who kills people. This is my comfort zone. I don't know. It's probably one of the more interesting isekais I've actually ever seen, and I find it very fascinating, especially since the entire plot is just everyone not understanding what's going on and assuming the worst. And it turns out none of it is what they think it is. Of course, the all-time classic, Evangelion. Because, as you might notice with a lot of these things, I like very intellectual, kind of like cerebral shows and games. Things where you actually have to kind of like think a little bit, and there's no single interpretation that's necessarily correct. I like that in media. I like thinking and breaking apart. I studied film and books and things like that throughout my years at college and high school. And it came down to the fact that like it really had an influence on me where you could come up with completely different interpretations of a work. And that's always sat really, big, firmly with me. Speaking of cerebral works, Steins Gate is another one of my big favorites. Also, just the fact that I love the fact that the main character is a complete dork that embraces the dorkness, yet acknowledges the dorkness. He's not blind to his own cringe. He just chooses to embrace it regardless. I appreciate that. And of course, the newest one on the list here, Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. Again, another one that really explores some interesting angles, and it's one of those things where you really kind of can get into the alternate storylines and the alternate interpretations and just really kind of feel like this is something that isn't a different interpretation of the events. Like a different interpretation of the concept. Elves live for a very long time, much longer than every other race. How does that affect them? Being told from the elves' point of view. That's not something we see very often, and I loved it. Now, moving on from anime to music. A lesser-known band is probably my all-time favorite. That would be KMFDM. They're an industrial band. Their lead singer is German. Go fig. But they're from Seattle. And their lineup has changed a half dozen times. So there's no real one way, except for the one guy who like is the leader of the band. He's like the only one who sticks around. I guess they're like Ghost in that sense. There's like one guy who's always in it, and then like everybody else changes constantly. But they're a heavy industrial band. Kind of fun. Completely opposite end, my second favorite person I like listening to, Jimmy Buffett. You know, how far can you get from a German industrial band? Let's go with Caribbean feel-good, smooth listening, soft rock. Yeah, I'm totally down with that. My only real regret is I never got a chance to see Jimmy Buffett in concert before he passed away. And before my dad passed away, we both had always wanted to go to a Jimmy Buffett concert together, and we never got the chance. And then I lost both my dad and Jimmy. Actually, my dad's name was Jimmy too. I lost Jimmy's. And then the last image here, I need to explain a bit. Okay, so while those other two things are probably some of my favorite bands, I like a lot of different kind of music. In fact, I am one of those people that says I'll listen to pretty much anything and probably find something to enjoy about it. I just am a person who likes to enjoy a lot of stuff, or at least find something in everything, in something to enjoy. There is a single exception to that, and that is country. Specifically, country made after 1990. Modern day country. Of course, I know modern day describing 1990 is kind of a weird thing to say. I'm old! Give me a break. But that's why I put this image here. So you have, some of the classics. You have Dolly Parton, you have Johnny Cash. You do have Garth Brooks crossed out because modern country, no go. I've never found anything about modern country, like post 1990, that I enjoyed. Pre 1990 country, I can find some stuff I like. It's not all of it, by any means, but that's where the stuff I like is. That being said, with music done, let's talk about games I like. Of course, the number one game, has to be Final Fantasy VI. I love all the Final Fantasy games. Well, most of the Final Fantasy games. Anyone who's been around long enough knows my opinions of Final Fantasy II. I hate that game. So stupid. But Final Fantasy VI always remains my favorite because of a very long story that I've told at least 2 or 3 times, but I'll just suffice it to say, I played that game when I was in a very dark time of my life, when I was very young. And the message of that game and the stories in that game gave me the oomph I needed to keep going with my life. So for that reason, it is always going to be my favorite. Is that just a silly nostalgic reason? Do I honestly think it is probably the criterion, of the whole thing, the best game structurally wise? I'd say it's up there with 9 at least, on par, in terms of definitely going to do it. And honestly, I think 6 does some things better than 9 does, and 9 does some things better than 6 does. That's why I kind of put them on level. But my favorite would be 6. Going back to the whole cerebral discussion about anime, we have Chrono Cross. The thinking man's Chrono Trigger. Namely, it's like, Chrono Trigger is a fun, silly time travel adventure. Everyone loves it. Chrono Cross is essentially multiversal time travel, dimensional travel, Schrodinger's cat, put in a blender and whipped together. Is it a good sequel to Chrono Trigger? I don't know. I think if they had done a third entry that was also just as different from Chrono Cross as Chrono Trigger, you might have get a better idea of the thing. It's kind of like the Halloween problem where you have, Mike Myers, and then Season of the Witch, which is a great movie, but no one wants Season of the Witch after Mike Myers. Chrono Cross is kind of like that. And of course, finally, Kingdom Hearts, which is, of course, one of my favorite games. It's a combination of Disney, which I love, and Final Fantasy, which I love, and together, mushed into a cool story that, quite honestly, I think again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's the opposite of the intellectual take. I think it's a very emotional take. I think if you intellectually try to work with Kingdom Hearts, you'll find it very, very unapproachable, because a lot of the story is not based off of, this is what coherently makes sense. It's more, this is what feels right. It's more about emotions and that kind of fairy tale feel, which I find is very interesting. But it's also just fun to run around and smack things while hanging out with Goofy and Donald, which I also would do in real life. Getting back to the stream here, this is BB. Hi, BB. BB is a small, fuzzy, shape-changing assistant. I know BB looks like a rabbit. BB is not a rabbit. BB is some sort of thing. I'm pretty sure BB's name is an acronym of some sort or something, but I have no idea what it stands for. I didn't give it to it. It just came with that name. It is capable of human speech, though, and tells really, really, really bad jokes. Like, my jokes are not always star quality, but ugh. No, BB's jokes are the worst. They exist to make me suffer. And all of you suffer. But it is a channel point redeemed to get BB to tell a joke. And our newest addition, Mog. As I said, Mog came here from Final Fantasy IX. He doesn't have a voice because he doesn't have the ability to speak, really. Because he's from a game where there wasn't voice acting. But he will announce when things happen on stream, follows, subs, raids, anything like that, bits. And he also responds to commands in chat. You know, if you type !angry, !cry, !shock, sleep, he'll do those. He'll do things. So you absolutely can get him to do stuff. He's at your disposal. But he is the newest addition, taking over Eve's previous role. No, nothing. This isn't this what I didn't. No, skipping. Okay. Stream plans. Plans for future streams. We still have a lot of Final Fantasy to go. We are still holding firm on the plan to play through all of Final Fantasy, every entry of the mainline games, and possibly some of those other side games. Possibly. We'll get around and we'll see what we get. Currently, we're going to be doing a Final Fantasy X race with Lunar Projections. Lunar, of course, is on their own channel doing their streams and everything like that, but they're doing a race as well. And at the end, we're going to compare times and see who did better. My money's on them. Another thing we're planning on bringing back the Chaos Sunday channel point goals. Those who know that I've done Chaos Sundays in the past where we just play a bunch of random stuff that I have somehow ended up in my Steam library or Xbox Game Pass library or Epic Game Store library. I have a lot of just random games that I've picked up over the years. And not all of them are good, but they're all weird. So we put them on a big wheel, we spin the wheel, and we see what we end up playing. That is going to be a community goal for channel points. By redeeming channel points towards that goal, you will be able to essentially help unlock the next Chaos Sunday. whenever we complete the goal, the next Sunday will be a Chaos Sunday. When will that be? Well, that's really up to you guys, really. I don't have a ton of control on that one, but that is something that we're going to be doing. And that goal is going to be persistent. After we do the Chaos Sunday, the next we'll open another goal for it, and just every time that goal bar fills, boom, Chaos Sunday. Another thing that we're planning on doing is a Dragon Age stream. Dragon Age. Stream chooses the adventure. Essentially, instead of me playing through Dragon Age with a special, I'm going to kill everybody or anything like that, I turn control either over to you guys or to a random number generator, depending on, if anyone's voting on anything or not. If there's no votes from stream, then boom, we go random number generator, because I'm not making a choice on this one. I am not choosing the adventure. You are. And that is how we're going to play through all of Dragon Age. All 4 games. You guys will just be in charge of it. Every time there's a major choice, at least, you guys will be put in charge of it. And we'll see where we end up. Because I don't know. Of course, we do still want to continue with our Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough of the Dark Puff Saga. For those who haven't caught one of those before, the Dark Puff is a gnome, warlock, Dark Urge playthrough who just relishes in being evil so much. I'm proud of it. She scares me a little. Also, probably at some point I want to get back into the Legacy of the Dragonborn Skyrim playthrough. We last left off with a completely broken quest, which sucks, but luckily it's a very optional quest, and we can get back and try and finish the museum. Of course, that means trying to get through the actual storylines, and I know we have a museum wing with the broken quests, but, we'll figure that out. And I want to do more weird stuff with you guys. Like, pure evil growing up playthrough that someone suggested. I believe we called it the Evil Shepherd playthrough. Shadowrun, but just Jeff. Where instead of playing an elite Shadowrunner through the course of the Shadowrun plotline, I'm just a guy named Jeff. Cyberware? No cyberware. Great skills? No great skills. Mundane stats across the board. And we'll just see what happens to Jeff. Here's a gun, Jeff. Do you know how to shoot that? No, but I'll pull the trigger. And I want to continue to make some cool theme parks, but one thing I wanted to do was just throw in some craziness or something like that, but random themes or trying to just play with different scenarios, less so. I don't like the scenarios so much because they're really one of those things where either you hit it right off the bat or you're in for a slog. But just playing around in a theme park game where we are just creating stuff, kind of in a sandbox mode, and building something weird and random and chaotic, just themes, people, start every one that's in there like, okay, we're doing this section of the park today. Someone throw me out a theme, and we'll just build from that. I think that would be fun. So yeah, weird stuff. Stuff where we take a game and then we just kind of tilt it to the side a little bit. Finally, credit where credit is due. This model that I am currently using was developed by Hayuki. Their Twitter handle is there. I don't know if they still use it or not, considering everything with X. BB was created by Marinki Art, and Mog and all of my current emotes were done by JP Wonderland. Fantastic artists all, and I highly recommend their work. With that, I want to say thank you all, and welcome to the Lunar Archive. BB also thanks you. So there you go. That's my VTuber introduction for my re-debut. I hope you enjoyed. I had fun putting it together.